Hi, all. Welcome to the fifth lecture on electromagnetics. So, this lecture is based on the second half of Module 6 as per your syllabus. And the topic that we're going to cover in this lecture is transmission lines. And in transmission lines, particularly the topics that we're discussing are about waves in transmission lines, the solution of lossless propagation, and about characteristic impedance. So before we start this lecture, just an overview about the portions that we have discussed in online lecture so far. Okay, so there have been 4 previous lectures that I have delivered. Okay, and so as of now, the status of portion completion is the fifth module is fully complete. Okay, both the theory and the problems are fully complete. Sixth module, the first half of the sixth module, which is about electromagnetic waves itself, that is the plane waves which are propagating in the different media, intrinsic impedance, attenuation constant, propagation constant, about all those parameters, and phase and group velocity. Phase and group velocity was sent as the material has been separately shared in your Google Classroom. Okay, so that covers still phase and group velocity, which is the first half of the sixth module. All the topics in the syllabus, both theory and problems, have been fully completed, and now we are moving on to the second half of module 6, which is about transmission lines. I'm starting this topic now, and there will be 2 lectures on transmission lines. So this is the first lecture on transmission line. You will have another lecture also, and with that the transmission line topic will also be complete. So let's start. A small introduction. Now, see, all the while from the previous module, we have been discussing about plane wave propagation. Okay. Basically, what we need to understand is, see, the plane wave, there are 2 ways in which plane wave propagation can happen. Okay. One is unguided propagation, and the second type is guided propagation. Now, what do you mean by unguided propagation? In the case of unguided propagation, your uniform plane wave exists throughout the space, okay? And the electromagnetic energy which is associated with the wave, it will spread over a wide area. So, wave propagation in unbounded media, some examples are radio and TV broadcasting. These are examples where the information is meant for everyone who may be interested. So, all the kind of propagation that we have discussed till now, that is like brainwave propagation in free space, okay, it is an infinite extent, it is an unbounded media. So that kind of propagation is referred to as unguided propagation. Now, another means of transmitting power or information is by using guided structures. Okay, so basically the 2 commonly used guided structures are transmission lines and waveguides. As far as we are concerned, we have only transmission lines in our syllabus, so we will be discussing only about transmission lines as a mode of guided propagation. So what is the difference between guided and unguided propagation? So unguided, your electromagnetic energy can spread over the whole area, over a wider range. Whereas for guided propagation, the electromagnetic energy will propagate from the source to the load via transmission lines. So an example of a guided propagation would be a telephone conversation. So in this case, the information is received privately by one person. That is, uh, you're communicating to a specific person. That person alone receives the information. Okay, so this is how we distinguish between guided and unguided propagation. So now basically when you talk, now one more thing, again in transmission lines, okay, they can be solved. Oh, I'm sorry, I just skipped. Uh, okay, yeah, so we'll Yeah, so let's continue. Transmission lines can be solved in using two methods. Okay, either we use the electromagnetic fields theory. Okay, that is normally transmission line problems or transmission line analysis can be solved using EM field theory or using the electric circuit theory. So actually field theory and circuit theory are two major theories on which electrical engineering is based. So now for us, we are mainly going to concentrate on the circuit theory method because it is easier to deal with mathematically. That is, we'll be using the KCL, KVL rules in order to find out the wave equation in transmission line. The analysis that we are going to do is based on circuit theory. Okay. So the definition of the definition of how propagation happens in using a transmission line is transmission lines are used to transmit electric energy and signals from one point to another. So the starting point is referred to as the source and the ending point is referred to as a load. Okay, that is the wave phenomenon on transmission line. It deals with point to point energy propagation. Okay, now transmission lines, these are the applications which I presume you're already familiar with. Transmission lines are commonly used in power distribution applications. Power distribution would mean lower frequency, and for communication applications the frequency will be higher. So this figure here actually shows you how the transmission line, so normally the transmission line, there will be two conductors, okay, two conductors which are separated by a suitable dielectric, and your wave propagation will be happening through that dielectric medium in between the two conductors. That is how wave propagation happens in transmission lines. So see, the common sources that we can have are, it could be a generator or a transmitter or an oscillator. So from this, the wave propagation starts. Okay, at the load end, it could be a factory or it could be an antenna. So if you're transmitting it from a transmitter, there will be an antenna here to receive the wave. And if your source is an oscillator, there would be an oscilloscope where you can view the wave. So in between this, the medium that is used for propagation is a transmission line. So there are different kinds of transmission lines that we have. Okay, there are coaxial cable. These are all examples of different types of transmission lines. Coaxial cables, two-wire lines, parallel plate, a wire above a conducting plate, microstrip lines. And these are the configurations or examples, that is figures representing, see, the first represents your coaxial cable. So there is an inner conductor and an outer conductor. The space in between, you'll be having a dielectric. This is a two-wire line. Okay, this represents a planar line. So here again, two conductors, the dielectric in between. This is the wire which is placed above a conducting plate, and this is the microstrip line. Okay, the microstrip line. So these are the different configuration of transmission lines. So now that we have a basic idea about guided propagation, okay, what is a transmission line, the different kinds of transmission lines. Now when we analyze transmission line, and in order to derive the expression for wave propagation in transmission lines, mainly we need to know, or we need to visualize how your transmission line circuit will look like. Okay, so the basic elements, that is a transmission line circuit which will normally have two conductors separated by a dielectric. This can be visualized, okay, as a circuit which consists of simple RLC components and suitable interconnection. Okay, so a normal two-wire transmission line with a dielectric in between can be visualized as a circuit which consists of RLC components. For shorter distances, okay, we can assume the elements to be lumped elements. That is, shorter distances where your time delay is negligible. If the distance of propagation is larger, the RLC components are assumed to be distributed. Okay. So these are the two ways in which the transmission line circuit elements are categorized, lumped and distributed. So see, this is how you can visualize it. If you see the figure over here, see, these are the two conductors that we have. And what do I find? So I can assume that there is a resistance and an inductance for the conducting wire. Okay, the conducting wire has a resistance R and an inductance L. Now this portion in between is where we have the dielectric. Okay, so these the shunt G. So you know that when your resistance is connected as a shunt, it can be represented as G, the conductance. So the conductance and the distributed capacitance C. So this is G and C, another G and C, and so on. Okay, so this G and C basically represents it corresponds to the dielectric, the conductance of the dielectric and the distributed capacitance of the dielectric. And these series components here corresponds to the resistance and the inductance of the series conductor, the conducting wire. Okay, so it is distributed. That is what you understand. Okay, throughout the length of your two conductor transmission line, these four components R, L, G, and C are distributed. So what we are actually doing is, for our analysis, so we know that over the length of the two-wire transmission line, these elements they are not discrete, they are distributed. But for our analysis purposes, what we are doing is, to make our analysis easier, let's consider a small portion. See, this is your entire two-wire transmission line, which has the series R and L and the parallel G and C. I'm going to consider one small section, which I'm going to assume that section is going to have a length delta Z. Supposing, okay, this is an assumption. Supposing this big circuit, I assume that I'm considering only a small length delta Z, which has an R, an L, and the G and C. Okay. So this is the circuit model that I'm going to use for deriving the wave equation in a transmission line. And this is referred to as the L-type equivalent circuit model of a differential length delta Z. Okay, that is, I'm considering a differential length delta Z, and for that differential length, this is a two conductor transmission line, and this equivalent circuit model is referred to as the L-type equivalent circuit model, capital L, L-type equivalent circuit model. So this is the model which we are going to analyze. So now for this small model, okay, so this is Z and this is Z plus delta Z, which makes this difference delta Z. Now we should understand that R, L, G and C are all defined in per meter, okay, per unit length. So that if R is per unit length, how do I get the total resistance? If R is in, so I just mentioned R is the resistance per unit length, okay, and it arises due to the resistivity in the conductors. So if R is the resistance per unit length, for a differential length delta Z, what is the total resistance going to be? It will be R into delta Z. So that is how I get this. Similarly, L is the inductance per unit length, which arises due to the stored magnetic energy around the line. So if L is the inductance per unit length in Henry per meter, the total inductance is going to be L dot delta Z. Now the next is the conductance. Okay, so the conductance is in 1 by ohm, that is mho meter. I hope you know that it is a reciprocal of resistance. So this is the conductance per unit length. So in order to get the total conductance, it will be G into delta Z. Now, see, this is a very interesting and important equation. Here, I have mentioned that this G is not equal to 1 by R. Why is that so? See, that is, see the R here, what does this R represent? This R represents the resistance of your conductor. G stands for the conductance of the dielectric. Okay, which means these are entirely different parameters. Okay, R is the resistance of the conductor, and G, what does G denote? G denotes the conductance of the dielectric. So this G is not going to be the reciprocal of this R. Okay, this G corresponds to the conductance of the dielectric. not this R. I hope this is clear. Okay. That is why we are mentioning that G is not equal to 1 by R, because R represents a parameter of your conductor and G is the conductance of the dielectric. That is why for this particular case, I cannot assume that this G equal to 1 by R. That will not be true. This G is not equal to 1 by R. Now what does C stand for? C is the capacitance per unit length, which arises due to the stored electric energy between the conductors. That is what. So this capacitance stands for the energy between the conductors. So if C is the capacitance per unit length in farad per meter, what will the total capacitance be? It will be C into delta Z. Okay. So this is how the parameters of the transmission line circuit can be explained. Now what you need to understand. So this is the L-type equivalent circuit. So these are your two conductors. Okay. Now here what you should understand is, see, for each line, okay, there is a homogeneous dielectric. This homogeneous dielectric is characterized with a mu, epsilon and a sigma, which means sigma is the conductivity of the dielectric, epsilon is the permittivity of the dielectric, and mu is the permittivity of the mu is the permeability of the dielectric. So mu, epsilon and sigma correspond to constants of the dielectric, and sigma C, mu C and epsilon C, they will represent the conductivity, permeability and permittivity of the conductor. Okay, so if you have a subscript C, that denotes the parameters of your conductor, that is this wire, and without the C, it is for the dielectric. Okay, and see this relation, this is a relation which holds true for a transmission line. Okay, that is this homogeneous fill. What do you mean by the homogeneous fill? That is your dielectric. Okay, it will satisfy these two relations for each line. That is LC is equal to mu epsilon and G by C is equal to sigma by L epsilon. Okay, these two relations will hold true for any transmission line. That means your L is considered to be analogous to the permeability mu. C is considered to be analogous to the permittivity epsilon, and G is considered to be analogous to the conductivity. All this is mu, where mu, epsilon and sigma are the parameters for the dielectric. Okay, so these two relations will hold true. Okay, see now these are for the expressions, that is we have considered. See among in the initial slides I had told you that there are many types of transmission lines. Okay, among all those types, the ones which are commonly used are coaxial line, two-wire line and planar line. So the corresponding expressions for the R, L, G and C for those lines which are commonly used are as shown in the table, and all these, what does the B, A stand for, that is correctly shown in the figure also. Okay, so I would recommend that it is good if you can know this table, these equations at least. Now if you're not able to study all, at least for the coaxial line, please study these relations. Okay, some of these we have derived also earlier in the previous modules. Okay, the C for a coaxial line we have derived. So if possible, please study all. Otherwise, at least for the coaxial line, you should know these expressions. Okay, what is the expression for R, L, G and C for the three most commonly used transmission lines? Okay, now like before we derive the wave equation in a transmission line, it is good if you can understand that the wave propagation in a transmission line also follows the TEM wave. That means it is a transverse electromagnetic wave itself. So how can you justify this? In order to justify, we have a simple circuit. So this represents the coaxial line which we are considering. Okay. So from here after for our analysis, we'll be mainly focusing on coaxial line itself. Okay. So this is your generator side and this is the load end. Okay, and here you're provided with a switch S. There is a current I which is flowing. Okay, now as per this setup, okay, when the switch S is closed, The inner conductor will be positively charged with respect to the outer conductor. Okay, so the corresponding electric field which is set up, that is shown here, your electric field is going to be radially outwards. And what about the magnetic field? The magnetic field will be such that, that is the magnetic field H will be such that it encircles the current carrying conductor according to Ampere's law. Okay, and E and H is going to be mutually perpendicular to each other. So in this case, what is the pointing vector? It is E cross H, and that is going to point in the direction of wave propagation. That means it will be along the transmission line. So actually what happens when you're closing the switch, you're actually creating a disturbance in the circuit which will cause a transverse electromagnetic wave to propagate along the line. Okay, so this propagation is similar to the plane wave propagation that we studied earlier. You have E, a magnetic field, E, the electric field, H, the magnetic field, and the wave propagation which is represented in the AK direction. And we should always remember that E, H and the wave propagation will be mutually perpendicular to each other. Okay, and in this case, this is a non-uniform plane wave. Okay, and by means of this propagation, power will be transmitted through the line. So this is the concept of how a transverse electromagnetic wave propagation is set up in a coaxial transmission line. So with this background details, now we are going to the next important section, which is to derive, that is, we are deriving the transmission line equation. That means what we're actually doing is we're going to derive an expression when wave propagates in transmission line, similar to how we derived electromagnetic wave equations in module 5. We are going to derive the wave equations for wave propagation in transmission lines. So we just discussed that a two-conductor transmission line is going to support TEM wave. That means your electric and magnetic fields will be transverse to the direction of propagation. Now, see, these are two equations that is our derivation is going to be based on these two equations. V, okay, that is the voltage V is related with the electric field E using this equation. V is minus integral E dot dl. This we have already studied. Similarly, the current I, which is flowing in the transmission line, that is related with the magnetic field H as line integral of H dot dl. Okay. So these are two equations that we have studied. That means what we're going to do now is, in order to derive the wave equation, instead of using E and H, we are going to use V and I in our derivation. Why do we use V and I? It's easier to work with. V and I are scalar quantities. It's easier to work with a current and a voltage than analyzing the electric and the magnetic field directly. So based on this relation, okay, we are going to derive in terms of V and I. Okay, instead of using E and H, we will derive in terms of V and I. So I hope you remember this was the L-type equivalent circuit that I just explained earlier. This side is connected to the generator and this side is connected to the load. So the current I of ZT, okay, V of ZT is the current input from the generator side. V of Z plus delta ZT is the voltage. Sorry, this is the voltage on the input side, and this is the voltage at the load side for this particular section, which has a differential length delta Z. Okay, so R delta Z is there, L delta Z, then the current flow. So here there is a node, a current delta I is going to flow through G delta Z. That will split. One portion will go through G delta Z, the other portion will go through C delta Z. And the IZ plus delta ZT current is going to pass on to the load side. Okay, so this is how this the equivalent circuit can be explained. Now, in order to derive, what are we going to derive? We are going to derive the wave equation for a transmission line. Okay, so we are going to apply the Kirchhoff's voltage law, the KVL rule, to the outer loop. What is the outer loop? The outer loop is this loop. Okay, see, V of ZT, the current which flows through R and L, and then it comes here. Okay, this is your outer loop. This is the outer loop. So to this outer loop, if I apply KVL, what is the expression become? See, V of ZT, this voltage is equal to the drop here, what is the drop here? I of zt into R delta Z. I into R, that is the drop across the resistance. What is the drop in the inductor? L into di by dt. Here the L is L delta Z, and instead of di by dt, we are writing it in partial form, dou I zt by dou t. And then the voltage here, what is the voltage here? It is V of Z plus delta Zt. It means this voltage is the sum of the drop here, and the voltage here. So I get this equation. I'm just rearranging this equation to this form. That is what I'm doing. This voltage term, you just bring it to the left hand side, and the other terms, leave it on the right hand side. And then throughout this entire equation, you just divide it with delta Z. I'll explain once again. This voltage term, bring it to the left hand side, and then divide this entire equation on both sides with delta Z. Okay. So when you derive when you do that, you're going to get equation 11.3. Now, what we can do here, as this delta Z tends to 0, this portion on the left hand side can actually be written as the partial derivative. Okay, that is, it can be written as dou v zt by dou z. How can you write it that way? See, if you see, what is the numerator over here? It is actually, see, supposing I take this minus outside, this is the same as writing v of z plus delta zt minus v of zt. It represents the difference in voltage, yes or no? That is, it is a delta v. So that delta v by delta z, I can also write it as dou v by dou z. That is what I'm doing over here. And there is a minus sign, because if you want to write it as a difference, v of z plus delta zt minus v of zt. So there is a negative sign outside in common. That negative sign is written here. Okay, instead of writing delta v by delta z, I'm writing it in partial derivative form. The right hand side remains as it is. So that is how I get equation 11.4. Now, so KVL is applied. Now I'm going to apply KCL to the main node. See, what is the main node here? This is the main node. When you apply Kirchhoff's current law, what happens? See, this total current here, I of Zt, it is the sum of I of Z plus delta Zt. That is this current plus delta I, isn't it? And this delta I again has two components. That means I of Zt is equal to, there will be three terms. The first term is this current. The second term is the current flowing here, and the third term is the current flowing here. So correspondingly, there are three terms. This term, the current flowing through the conductance, okay, instead of writing V by R, since this is the conductance, it becomes V into G. Similarly, for capacitance, C into dV by dt. The current I is equal to C into dV by dt. That is what is written over here. Like in the previous case, okay, what I'm going to do, all the current term, this term, I'm going to bring it to the left hand side. These two terms will remain here itself, and then throughout I'm going to divide with delta Z. What am I doing? This term here, bring it to the left hand side, and then divide this entire equation with delta Z. So I'll get this equation 11.5. And here again, like in the previous case, as delta Z tends to 0, I can write this term as minus dou I zt by dou z is equal to, this term remains this way. This delta z is tending to 0. So I'm not writing it that again. That you need not write it down again. So that's how you get equations 11.4 and 11.6. Okay. Now, I've already explained this in the previous lectures. V of zt and I of zt are the instantaneous forms. It's easier to work with the phasor form. How do you write it in phasor form? By eliminating the time dependence term. That is V of zt, the instantaneous value, is the real part of the phasor form E of j omega t. This is the term that represents the time dependence. Okay. So if I'm writing these two equations, that is 11.4 and 11.6, I'm going to write it in terms of the phasor form, Vs and Is. So I change the partial derivative into a complete derivative, and I'm going to write minus dVs by dz is equal to this term. Similarly, minus dis by dz is equal to this term. And here again, this is representing in phasor form. So the dou by dou t can be replaced with what? It can be replaced with j omega. If you have forgotten this, Please go back, refer lecture 3. All this has been explained in detail over there. Okay, how to write the phasor form. So that's how I get equation 11.8 and 11.9, okay, in phasor form. See, these equations are actually referred to as the telegraph equations. Okay, a common name for equation 11.8 and 11.9 is they are known as the telegraph equations. Okay, now see, if you see these terms, Vs and Is appear to be coupled because Vs is written in terms of Is is written in terms of Vs. So I want to decouple and obtain the expression individually in terms of Vs and Is. That means I want to separate the Vs and the Is terms. For that, what I can do is, in order to make this term as a term of only Vs, first I'll take the second derivative. Okay. When you take the second derivative of this term, what happens? Listen carefully. I'm taking the second derivative. Why am I doing this? Vs and Is are coupled terms. Okay, I want to decouple them. That is, I want to separate Vs and Is and write it as two separate equations. Okay, an equation for Vs and an equation for Is. In order to decouple, the procedure that I'm doing is first take the second derivative of this equation 11.8. What happens when you take the second derivative? This term becomes d square Vs by, d square Vs by dz square is equal to r plus j omega L. This is a constant term. This becomes dis by dz. Okay. So this, now what I'm doing is this dis by dz, I'll substitute it from equation 11.9. Okay. I'll substitute it and write it over here. So when I do that, the expression becomes this. Okay. So now this term, I have decoupled the Is term. And now what I'm doing is, this term I'm going to replace it, and this is your propagation constant gamma. Okay, the propagation constant gamma. So my equation becomes, so this is actually the first equation for wave propagation in terms of voltage in a transmission line. This d square Vs by dz square minus gamma square Vs is equal to 0, where your gamma is the propagation constant, which is defined as alpha plus j beta. And from this expression, what is gamma equal to? It is equal to square root of this term. Similar approach, take the second derivative of this term, and in place of dvs by dz, I'm going to substitute from 11.8. In that case, when you rearrange, you will get 11.12. You just need to write down the approach is the same and you'll get this expression. So now 11.10 and 11.12, they are actually the two equations. Okay, these two equations are the wave equations for voltage and current. So if you see, the form is similar to that of wave equations obtained for plane waves in the previous module. Okay. So these are the wave equations. For these two equations represent the wave equations for voltage and current. The wavelength and the velocity of propagation, the equations are the same as before. We have already discussed this earlier. Same like plane wave propagation, the same equation for wavelength and velocity of propagation. As I told you, you can use the notation u or v for velocity of propagation. Just be consistent in your derivation or in your explanation. Use any one notation throughout, that's all. Now, so these two are differential equations in second order. Okay, so the solution will be of this form. Okay, the solution of linear homogeneous differential equations will be in 11.15, 11.16. This is the solution. Okay, so what does this represent? This portion, this term represents the forward wave, and this term represents the backward wave. Okay, so the propagation is in the z direction. Similarly for current, forward and backward. Okay. So where V0 plus, V0 minus, I0 plus and I0 minus represent the wave amplitudes. Okay. Plus Z and minus Z represent the direction. Okay. So these are the phasor forms. And finally, substituting it back, if you want to obtain the instantaneous value, what will you do? V of zt is the real part, Vs of z e raised to j omega t. That is, I'm bringing back the time, the term in time. And this Vs of z, it has two terms. Okay, so V0 plus e raised to minus alpha z. That is for gamma, you substitute it as alpha plus j beta. And the real part is cos. This again we have already discussed, okay, in the previous lectures. So this represents this is the instantaneous forward moving wave, and this is the backward moving wave. Okay. So with this, the first part, that is deriving the wave equation for voltage and current in a transmission line, that is complete. And we have also discussed about, see, propagation constant gamma is a very important, this is a very important constant. Okay, it is analogous to the propagation constant which we studied in electromagnetic waves. Okay, so this is one very important parameter for wave propagation in transmission line, propagation constant. Now, another important parameter with regard to transmission line propagation is Z0. Z0 is referred to as the characteristic impedance of the line. And it is defined as the ratio of the positively traveling voltage wave to the current wave at any point on the line. So you should understand, so this is the definition, V0 by I0, either plus or minus. Okay. So this Z0, characteristic impedance, it is analogous to the intrinsic impedance which we studied earlier for wave propagation. Now see how you get this equation. This I have very clearly explained here. You go through it on your own. Okay. It's very self-explanatory. That is what we're doing is 11.15 and 11.16. That is these two expressions. These two expressions, you substitute it into this 11.8 and 11.9. Okay. The 11.15, 11.16 expressions, when you substitute it into 11.8 and 11.9 and you equate the coefficients of e raised to minus gamma z and e raised to gamma z. When you do that, you will get this. How this is done is very clearly derived over here. If you just go through it, you will understand. Okay. So that is how this, and this is important, the fact that Z0 is R plus J omega L by gamma or gamma by G plus J omega C. Which means what can Z0 actually be written as? From this you just cross multiply. Okay. It can be written as root of, this is how it is defined. This is very important, equation 11.19, R plus J omega L divided by G plus J omega C. See, how do you get this? You cross multiply here, and we already know what is gamma equal to. Gamma is equal to this expression here. See, this is gamma. And you have gamma square. So, remove the square root, and when you substitute that, so if you cross multiply and substitute for gamma, you will get this. So that means there is an R0, it has a resistance part, and plus JX0, the reactance part. Now let me just explain this also. So this, see, this is very important. What do you mean by the propagation constant of a transmission line propagation? What do you mean by the characteristic impedance Z0? The definition and the equations for both these constants, propagation constant and characteristic impedance, is very important. Okay. R plus J omega L, if you see R and L, they are both the resistance and the inductance of the conductor. So this can actually be represented as the impedance of your line conductor. And G plus J omega C, this represents the admittance of the dielectric. Okay, G plus J omega C represents the admittance of the dielectric, and this is the impedance of the line conductor. So this equation is very important. So now the wave equation that we derived now corresponds to the lossy type. As I've mentioned, we always assume the lossy type as the general form, and from that we can derive for any other type like the lossless type and so on. What do you mean by lossy type? We already know lossy type means your conductor does for the conductor exactly the conductivity is not equal to infinity, and for the dielectric, since the dielectric is lossy, the sigma is not equal to 0. The meaning of a transmission line which is lossy, it means that the conductor of the transmission line does not have infinite conductivity, and the dielectric in the transmission line, that is the dielectric between the conductors of the transmission line, does not have 0 conductivity. This is the general case. Now we're going to consider two special cases. Okay. The first special case is for a lossless line. Okay. So a lossless line, by definition, when is a line said to be lossless? Your conductor is a perfect conductor. What do you mean by perfect conductor? The conductivity will be infinity. And the dielectric medium is lossless. When is the dielectric medium said to be lossless? When sigma is 0. So a transmission line is lossless if these two conditions are satisfied. And when these two conditions are satisfied, from the table 11.1, see, this is the table where those equations, that is why I told you that table is important. You need to know, especially for coaxial cable, the expressions for R, L, G and C, you must know. So if you substitute sigma C as infinity and sigma as 0 in those expressions, R and G is going to be 0 for a lossless line. That means for a lossless line, R and G both are 0. This is a necessary condition for a line to be lossless. This table 11.1 is given in the previous slides. Okay, just look back and refer. So now with these conditions, we are going to derive the other parameters. What happens to alpha? Alpha becomes 0 and beta becomes j omega root of LC. See, how are you getting all this? See, you have the expression here for gamma. If R is 0 and G is 0, there is no real part, which means alpha is 0. And then when you equate beta, you will get beta as equal to j omega root LC. We know that the velocity of propagation expression is omega by beta. You substitute this beta here. Another expression for velocity is also f into lambda. And then again, when you substitute these conditions in the expression for Z0, see, this is the what happens if R is 0 and G is 0, this becomes root of L by C. That means it has only a real part. The reactance X0 is equal to 0 and Z0 is reduced to R0. That means the impedance is only purely resistive. In the case of a lossless transmission line, the impedance becomes purely resistive and root of L by C. So this is how the condition is derived for a lossless line. See, lossless line is particularly mentioned in your syllabus also, so this is very important. The second classification or the second type of line is a distortionless line. A distortionless line is defined in this way. For a distortionless line, R by L is equal to G by C. A line in which this condition is satisfied is referred to as a distortionless line. Another way of defining is the attenuation constant is frequency independent and the phase constant is linearly dependent on the frequency. This is the definition of a distortionless line. So if R by L is equal to G by C, I'm going to substitute this relation in the expression for gamma. Okay. And so when I substitute in the expression alpha and beta, these are the expressions that I get. So what do you understand from this? See, your attenuation constant is independent of the frequency and the phase constant varies linearly with respect to the frequency. Okay. Then again for Z0, when you substitute this relation, okay, that is R is taken out outside, G is taken out, and R by G can be replaced with L by C. So finally, again, what happens in this case also, X0 is equal to 0. That is, there is no reactance. Z0 has only a resistance part, which is given in this way, and the velocity is given in this way. Okay. So these are the terms. That is for what have we done? We started with the introduction about guided wave propagation. We discussed the basic nature of a transmission line, especially for a coaxial cable. The fact that a transmission line model has 4 parameters, R, L, G and C. Okay, the L-type equivalent circuit was derived. Based on that circuit, the wave equations for voltage and current were derived. The propagation constant and the characteristic impedance, which are 2 very important terms with regard to wave propagation in transmission line. Those 2 terms were also derived. Initially, all this was derived for the lossy type transmission line, and then as special case, lossless type and distortionless type has been discussed. Okay. See, this table is very important. Please study this table. The values of the propagation constant, the expressions for the propagation constant and the characteristic impedance, the general case, that is the lossy case, lossless case, and the distortionless case, transmission line characteristics. So this table is important. Okay, now just for clarity of concept, I've included one problem. Okay, let's read the question. An airline has a characteristic impedance, that means Z0 is given in the question, and a phase constant of 3 radians per meter. So beta is also given in the question at a frequency, that is f is given. So you can find out omega as 2 pi f. And you are asked to calculate the inductance per meter and the capacitance per meter of the line. That means what do you have to find out? L and C. Okay. Now we air. So from the term airline, you should understand that air is a lossless medium. You should know that. Okay. That means the sigma, that is, in this case, the dielectric in between the two conductors is air, which is a lossless medium. So sigma is 0. That means we have to use the equations corresponding to the lossless type. So G and R are 0, alpha is 0, and the expression for Z0 and beta is also written down. These are the expressions that we just derived now. Now by suitably rearranging, you know Z0, you know beta, and you know omega. So in this expression, beta is known. These are the two expressions. You divide these two expressions. So in that case, the only unknown will be the capacitance. Find out the capacitance first. Once you know the capacitance, you can find out the once you know the capacitance, the inductance can be found out from this expression. Okay. Because the characteristic impedance is given. Z0 is given because it is a lossless medium. X0 is equal to 0. So Z0 is equal to R0, which means R0 is known. So once you find out C, you can find out L also. So that's how you solve this problem. So with this, I'm winding up the first lecture on transmission lines. We will continue in the next lecture. Thank you.